Welcome to Credentialing Chronicles, where we spill the doctor tea hotter than your morning coffee.
And give you the insider scoop in the wild world of credentialing, provider drama, and everything they don't teach you in med school.
I'm Shannon, and she's Nylene, two credentialing pros with front row seats to all the chaos.
From fraud scandals to burnout breakdowns and why your favorite surgeon might actually be banned from 5 hospitals.
We got the gossip and the practical advice to keep you out of trouble and ahead of the game.
So grab your coffee, your compliance checklist, and maybe a lawyer, and let's get into it.
Welcome back to Credentialing Chronicles, where we don't whisper about healthcare scandals. We say them with our full chest. I love that.
Yeah, today's episode is the one I've been wanting to do for a while. It's dark, it's messy, and it's real. We're talking about, what happens when a doctor is dangerous, and then the system can protect them sometimes. From sexual assault survivors being ignored to ICE detainees subjected to unnecessary surgeries. Girl, it's cover-up culture and not patient safety.
I just cannot stand to hear it. But really, our people need to hear it. So grab your tea because we're diving into some jaw-dropping cases where patients were hurt. Not because the system didn't know, but because it did and looked the other way.
I know. Well, make sure we have our disclaimer in this episode because the tea is hot.
Hot. As a disclaimer, the cases we will be sharing with you are all available through public court documents. We promise we are not sharing any privileged or private information, and we have never personally credentialed any of these practitioners or facilities. We will not release the names of the practitioners, but we will give you all the other juicy details.
This episode of Credentialing Chronicles is sponsored by Advanced Quality Compliance, your white glove credentialing crew. We get it. One person doing the work of 5, audit season looming, files all over the place. AQC steps in with expert hands and calm minds, digitizing your chaos, handling the details, and keeping you audit ready 24/7. Think less stress, more success with a touch of luxury. No stress, no mess, just AQC white glove service. Visit aqccvo.com to get started.
All right, Shannon. So let's get started with case number 1. And today we're picking on Oregon. So we're back on the West Coast. And we're just going to give you a quick highlight of 4 bullet points. And then we're going to get into the deets. So this doctor was accused by over 100 women of performing unnecessary pelvic exams, allegations of sexual misconduct involving women and children, some while they were under anesthesia. The grand jury declined to indict him in 2022. The police lacked formal sexual assault training. They took forever. Girl, this has all sorts of red flags from our medical board system to our legal system.
Yes, so let's start with the numbers. Over 100 women came forward. Nylene, how does a doctor rack up 100 complaints and still not see the inside of a courtroom?
I have no idea. I think we need to go over these details, Shan. All right, so what went wrong? So we're going to talk a little bit about the police department and the Board of Oregon, kind of what happened, how parallel they worked, and who beat who, okay? So the local police department was informed about the doctor's behavior. So kudos, right? Somebody reported it right away, right? Very happy about that. They were told about potential child pornography patterns of abuse. And then what happened next started raising questions. So the problem is the police was alerted and then they waited over 2 months to begin interviews after being tipped off by the medical board. So somebody had told the medical board, and then the medical board goes and runs and tells the police. And then the police drag their feet. So the detective that led the case without special, he wasn't, according to him, specialized in training, hadn't received specialized training in sexual assault investigations as required by police policy. So I guess policemen are supposed to be trained in all of this stuff, right? So he didn't understand basic medical procedures like the word speculum or pelvic exams. And then he just, instead of trying to educate himself about what he's trying to talk about, he didn't do that. He did not educate himself. So Shannon, all right, so let's go over the timeline. So go ahead with what happened starting in June of 2020.
Yes, let's even talk about it. So June 2020, the initial reports and Oregon Medical Board initially got involved. June 16th, the Oregon Medical opened up their investigation after they had gotten multiple complaints from former and current patients. And then June 19th, 3 days later, I guess an investigator had started to email the police department inquiring if they were aware of allegations related to potential child pornography and this doctor and things like that. And then I guess 3 days later, right? 3 days later, the 22nd, the investigator had followed up, like putting the urgency on it, you know what I'm saying? And suggesting that the doctor could destroy evidence, Nylene. And he was warning of the pictures and the studies that he was calling studies. They were pictures that were very inappropriate and they were, oh my God. And then June 30th, the detective investigator guy and the detective from the police department, right, met in person.
Yeah, 15 days later. So imagine June 16th, if Oregon Medical Board opened any investigation, that means the doctor found out. So they were freaking out because they were like, 24 hours, he's going to start deleting that hard drive, right?
Which makes sense.
So they understood the urgency. The medical board understood the urgency. So I'm so proud, by the way, of Oregon Medical Board because they were pushing. Great job. So August of 2020, then Oregon imposes an interim stipulated order to voluntarily withdraw from practice. So June, so we got July and August. So we got about 45 days. The board took immediate action, stipulated an order for him to voluntarily withdraw practice. Yep, exactly what we've been talking about.
Yeah, pause.
While they complete an investigation. So kudos to Oregon. The minute they found out, they took action relatively quickly. So this board was boarding.
Oregon. And I think they don't have no sales tax too, I heard.
Oh, it's awesome
FYI.
State, by the way.
Yeah, I heard it's an awesome state. We're really, let's just talk about how long it took the criminal side of things to happen now, right? The medical board did their ding, but Nylene, break down what happened with the criminal side. How long were they taking on their side?
So remember, they heard about it in June. So we got June. Then the investigator and the police not till the end of June. So I guess July and August are like summer months. And I guess you don't do anything during those months because, girl, it wasn't until September that they start interviewing these people who were making the complaints. So the survivors that were being attacked and victimized by this doctor. Not only did they start interviewing them, but the police didn't follow protocol and had no victim advocates present at the beginning of the interviews. Correct. Then eventually some got victim advocates and some didn't.
And then in October, right? Like, cause this kept drawing out, right?
Right. But look at what happened in October with Oregon?
Officially revoked the medical license because they said they wasn't waiting on the police anymore.
Correct. They weren't waiting on the police anymore. So I'm really proud of Oregon. That is the quickest I've seen
ever
in a long time.
And for unprofessional, Dishonorable conduct, specifically the sexual part misconduct, and gross or repeated acts of negligence. So they let you know too, this is why we did this. So if you ever come here to verify, boom, here's the truth, transparent info.
Yep. And they assessed a $20,000 civil penalty on him. So super, super proud of Oregon board. They acted quicker than the police did. Usually it's the other way around. The police are arresting him and the board's like, oh, we didn't know you got arrested, you know?
Oh, let's revoke the license now that he's in jail. Yeah.
Exactly. So kudos to Oregon Medical Board. So proud of you.
Oregon Medical Board.
So anyway, let's talk about police failures at this point. So we passed September. We passed October. They do a couple more interviews. Again, some get advocates, some don't. We're back into November, some more interviews. We're back into December, more interviews. You're talking over 50 women came over that were interviewed. Then we keep going and nothing happens.
God. Nothing.
So December, nothing. So then you're talking to December of 2021, an entire year to get the last bit of interviews. Girl, but can you believe that the investigator did not present the findings, or the detective in this case for the police department did not present the findings until 2 years later?
I just don't even understand how that happens. And then February 2024, what's coming out at that time? Because this is just keep lagging.
Yeah, so 2 years, by the way. So who remembers anything by that point? So in February, then the final report was delivered. The council meets, and then the police had to publicly report what happened and their deficiencies, which is where we were able to find all of this, juicy information. There were policy violations, interview failures. Here's where it gets painful, because policy violations aren't just technical errors. There were emotional wounds from these survivors having to go through and explain everything that they had been through. And those police departments' own policies required trauma-informed approaches and support during sexual assault interviews. I mean, I don't work for the police department, but I would assume this is common, right? People go to the police because they get their abuse victims.
Mm-hmm. And they say that the first 4 victims explicitly asked for a female support person and a victim advocate, and both requests were denied. And then, and then the detective even asked some survivors to come back the next day because he was overwhelmed, girl. He was tired.
Girl, he wasn't even the one that had experienced anything. So
no, and he'd been working on it 2 years. I don't know how he was overwhelmed. So I'm like, what is happening? And then on top of that, the victims later described his approach as dismissive, cold, and emotionally disconnected. And so it's like, here we're telling medical staff professionals create a safe environment to disclose for the provider, but we need the police to also create a safe environment for patients and
victims.
Victims to disclose. Like, what is happening?
Yeah, so 17 out of 43 victims didn't even have an advocate present. So that's just not acceptable. Like, I could understand, 1 or 2 because the timing didn't work or something like that. I'm not asking you for 100% compliance rate, right? But really, that's just
I'm asking you to try. I'm asking you to try, right?
Right. So what's even more troubling, is that many of the survivors said that what was written in the police reports didn't match what was said in their interviews. Falsifying records, omitting records. Reports failed to document signs of grooming, inappropriate questioning, or the full emotional weight of survivor accounts. Some descriptions of physical abuse, like certain extra introductions of places we're not supposed to go to were downplayed or they were omitted. And then several survivors said that they never even heard back after reported and weren't even interviewed. So who knows how many women there were? How does this make us feel as patients, right? As victims, as women? I mean, really, this is what the whole Me Too movement is about.
Yeah, I mean, it's appalling when you think about it, because there's not a safe place where women can go to disclose things like this. And in later interviews, the investigators asked better questions and showed more understanding of medical context. But by then, the damage had already been done to trust, to credibility.
Right.
And the ability to even pursue criminal charges. The case became a symbol of how not to conduct a trauma-centered investigation, Eileen. And when you think of that, it's like, this whole situation is now a case in what not to do. Will be forever this detective's, name, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So what do you think that all of this took so much time? Because why? If you're a white coat, you get a pass, or if your job is too complicated and hard to explain, then you get a pass because the police don't know what you're talking about, or you get a consequences free card. If this guy was behind a gas station, raping women or groping women, he would have been in jail, right? That day.
And let's not ignore this part. Some of these women were under anesthesia. They didn't even have a chance to protect themselves.
And the police response is, oh, we didn't have the right training? Come on. Then what are you trained for? Writing parking tickets?
Exactly. And the system not only failed, it wasn't even set up to handle this kind of thing. And that is terrifying for women everywhere. Later on, we'll talk about what women can do to protect themselves, but right now let's talk about another case that came out of Eastern Maryland. And these facts too, Nylene, are just appalling, right?
Ugh, I can't even talk about this one. This one made me cringe. Wait till you find out the deets I have on this guy. He was a traveling cardiologist.
Okay.
All right. So initial reports. We have a pattern that's starting to emerge. Now, 2024, the Easton Police detectives met with a woman who reported multiple sexual assaults by this doctor. She was employed by that medical center. And he apparently began with non-consensual kissing, like, girl, pick up something, hit him over the head. But anyway, that escalated. She'd probably get arrested for
assault.
Assault, right?
Yeah. Assault of a doctor.
Him.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, sorry. Anyway, this escalated into him, unwantingly touching her. And this was all while they're working at the hospital.
While they're working. Yeah, she's just trying to come get her paycheck. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. It's not an isolated incident. Then a second survivor starts coming forward. So a second hospital staff member reported similar behavior, the consensual hair pulling and kissing. Then things escalated horrifically. She told detectives that he forced her to do unsolicited sexual acts with him.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
Then there's a third story. Okay. Third story, they just keep coming, right?
Yeah, and this is all the same doctor.
Same doctor, 3 women. Okay, now mind you, we're going to get into this little aspect of it, but he's a traveling doctor. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Yeah. 3 ladies already in one facility, short amount of time. They come out and they say, this doctor, then now he forcibly kissed this one, grabbed her butt, and then he exposed himself to her. Like,
what? By now, clear patterns of behaviors are emerging. I mean, that's what we always are talking about. It seems by the professional environment in these women worked. I mean, how is this even getting to be allowed?
Right. Or is he using his status as a physician to scare these women until they finally get the courage to speak up?
Yeah, basically. I mean, it seems like the Board of Physicians did step in while the investigation was unfolded. The doctor faced a hearing with the Maryland Board of Physicians, correct? That's what I was reading when you were putting it together.
Yes. So according to the reports, well, he ended up admitting sexual contact with other women at the hospital, but none of the ones that had reported. So he's admitting, yes, he reported, he admitted to some other ones, but not the ones that accused him. And all his statements were completely inconsistent during the investigation. So that admission, okay, so check this out. So that admission, all right, we're going to give a little credit where credit is due. That admission paired with the conflicting accounts was enough to ring alarm bells for the Licensing Board of Maryland. So Maryland went ahead and suspended his license. Good job, right? Right? So some other states followed suit.
Good. This is a big deal. This is a big deal because this doctor wasn't just based in Maryland, because what did you say? He was a traveling cardiologist. So working under contract in multiple states, that license suspension is traveling with him. And we see that a lot now through the Federation of Medical State Boards, because a lot of the boards report up to there. And so you see one board will spark, and then another will open an investigation, and then will spark. And if they're not disclosing it to the other board, I've seen physicians get in trouble at each board because they didn't go and disclose it that they had an action.
Yeah, but you know me, right? I had to get digging on this one. So, I had to check, right? Girl, he had and has, right? Because if they're active or inactive or suspended or maybe active, he has had a license in all 50 states, including DC, District of Columbia.
51, okay? All 51 covered.
Yes. And I just can't because I couldn't. I literally was having like agita as I'm doing this research, because I went one by one, because of course I did.
I know you did. Compliance queen out here.
Okay, so I started clicking and okay, some of them said revoked. I was like, okay, good. Some of them just say suspended. Okay. Some say inactive. Okay. Others said, no, that they expired. Okay. He didn't renew them. Okay. Oh, girl. But in the state of Florida, his license is clear and active.
What? Why? Florida, are you listening to Credentialing Chronicles? Oh my God, no way. I have no words. See, I don't live in Florida. And didn't you just move out of Florida?
Yes, girl.
See, okay.
This is why I can't. I just can't. I nearly fell off my chair. I stopped by the time I got to F, because I went through, Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado. Like I went all the way. By the time I got to Florida and I saw that, I had to stop, because I said, if I see one more state that has an active license, I think my heart might fall out of my chest.
I can't believe you just named all of the states in alphabetical order. I'm so done with you. I'm so done, Eileen. That's my girl. I could do
the whole song.
Her brain, y'all. Total nerd. Her brain is just of the highest level. Okay. Oh my God.
So it doesn't even stop there, right?
I can't believe it.
Since he has a license in all 50 states, what do you think he's doing? If I'm over there checking which licenses are still active.
Because you got to work. Yeah, you got to work.
He's doing the same thing. Girl, investigators discovered that he was packing up and leaving the state of Texas, which is where he was from. He put his house up for sale. Then the house went into pending, and they were like, oh my goodness, this man is a flight risk, so we got to hold him down. Texas is running after him, putting him into custody, like whole Jason Bourne movie going on over here.
And you hear it right here at Credentialing Chronicles, okay? Yeah, follow, like, and subscribe. We have been told we need to say that more. So you hear it here. All the juicy tea.
So finally, then a criminal charge is filed. Like they finally put this guy in some handcuffs. Okay. He's charged with first and second degree rape, 8 counts of fourth degree sex offense, 6 counts of second degree assault, 2 counts of false imprisonment, 3 counts of harassment. And I'm sure that's just one, okay? Or 2 ladies or 3 ladies, maybe max, but who knows how many he's actually assaulted across all 50 states.
Well, I heard the Easton police believe that there may be more additional victims in that area who have not come forward. So if you or someone you know may have been impacted by this doctor's actions, this was a very big case that was coming out of Easton, they want you to reach out to them. Your voice matters. They're sorry for how they handled things.
Yes, they actually did an entire press release to let women know to please come forward. They've corrected their policies and procedures, and they've trained their staff now, and they want to make sure that they can appropriately persecute this doctor. And obviously it needs to be like a whole 50 state alert situation. Like this man was going to Alaska too. I mean, I can't even, it's just crazy.
All 50.
Crazy.
Yes, definitely.
So just like you said, if you want to keep, to support the show and help us keep spilling the healthcare tea, you're going to hit that link and follow.
Support.
Everywhere. Yes, please. We need you in our inner circle, and keep sending us those reports of doctors and stories and headlines you want us to investigate and tell you whether or not they still have an active license to practice in this.
Yes, people send us things on LinkedIn. They send us different articles. Girl, I have gotten stuff sent to me on TikTok. I have gotten stuff sent to me on Facebook. People are in my personal Facebook, in the business Facebook. I'm like, oh Lord. So really, if you want to support us and, really you got to share, we got to get it out. This is not just for medical staff professionals. It's not just for doctors or patients. It's for patients. It's for everybody that goes and sees a doctor. How do you protect yourself? Because as you see, just from this story alone, 2 stories from the east to the west, these crazy things are happening. And Nylene has another story right now.
We got one more. I know you guys are overwhelmed with all of this tea, but we just got to do one more. It's like the icing on the cake.
Well, speaking of icing, right? It's about the ice period, the ice people, right? And that's such a big thing. Yeah, that's such a big thing going on right now, is the ice taking the people. So we had to bring this to you guys and tell you what is happening. Go ahead, Nylene. I'm sorry to interrupt you, boo.
Oof, no. This one, let's talk about the highlights. ICE detainees at Irwin County Detention Center reports of hysterectomies and surgeries without consent, federal investigation, confirmed abuse, and now class action lawsuits filed.
Why? I know. Now this one is it's making me sick, because these are immigrant women, they're already so vulnerable and they've been detained. And why everybody that is listening, can somebody tell me why they are sent to a gynecologist who was basically experimenting on them? That's what it sounded like to me, Nylene, when I read it.
Well, hysterectomies without consent, that's not medicine. That's a violence.
Exactly. I don't even, what was that word? How do you say that? Eugenics with a stethoscope, honey. And the most heartbreaking part is they can't fight back. They are locked up under anesthesia, and forgotten. I mean, what are they doing?
Oh my goodness, girl. Well, it began September 2020 when a whistleblower complaint rocked the nation. Advocacy groups alleged that an off-site OBGYN doctor had performed a suspiciously high number of hysterectomies on women detained at that detention center known as ICDC. This complaint triggered an 18-month-long Senate investigation led by the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. And what they uncovered was far worse than just one kind of surgery, Shannon. It reveals a pattern of invasive, excessive, and unnecessary gynecological procedures on vulnerable detainees.
And again, I'm just going to say it, on women. Like, there is an attack on women happening. And let's rewind. This doctor started treating ICE detainees in 2014. By 2015, he had already settled a Medicaid fraud case with the Department of Justice and the state of Georgia. So he was already having problems for ordering what? Unnecessary procedures that were useless.
So let me get this right. Aren't Medicare and Medicaid sanction checks and OIG and SAM checks, aren't they mandatory during our normal credentialing process?
Yes, they are.
Where is the credentialing process for the government of the United States? For this department of the government?
Well, anyway. I've reached out before, and they say it's all done in-house through the VA, and they have their own centralized CVO, but I don't know how much they're doing, honey. I mean, really, just imagine.
So somehow this doctor was still authorized to treat detainees, no board certifications, a slew of malpractice cases, no oversight from ICE. So from 2017 to 2020, he became an outlier. He performed 90% of the OBGYN procedures across the entire ICE detention system, despite the ICDC holding only 4% of female detainee population. This one facility only held 4, but he did 90% of the OBGYN cases.
No, he was mutilating people. I mean, I know you put the stuff for me to say right here, but oh my goodness, I don't know all the words, He performed the 44, I mean, go ahead and laugh at me. I don't want to say the words wrong, Nylene. Okay. I'm going to try. He performed 44 laparoscopies.
Laparoscopies.
Go ahead. I'm gonna let you take it away. Go ahead, Nelly.
he performed 44 laparoscopies to excise lesions, which is basically like little tumors or something. Like, it could be polyps or little
I can't even say it.
Out. He gave depot injections, DNCs. He did 53 DNCs, 163 pelvic exams, many of which experts later saw after reviewing the medical records they were excessive or outdated forms of the procedure that can cause permanent harm or damage to these women. So one of the experts, another doctor, said, and I quote, "Dr. so-and-so practices were pretty good medicine for the 80s, but we're not there anymore." He flagged numerous cases where less invasive treatments were overlooked completely and entirely.
And then there's the human side of this, which is where, Shannon's always going to. Women victims told the Senate that they felt confused, that they were left violated, and they have long-term physical and emotional pain. And some didn't even know what had been literally done to them, still to this day, until after the fact. And so, they're going through, this happened to them. They had no consent. They don't know. And they've just been put on this chopping block at this point, right?
Oh, that's a rough word and rough double meaning that you're saying that. But, informed consent, a basic ethical standard in healthcare, was rarely, if ever, properly obtained. ICE claimed it wasn't their job. Check this out. Wasn't their job to monitor offsite doctors for consent. Hello, aren't they being credentialed by ICE? Like, the government has to credential them. I don't know. If you work for the Veterans Association, the Veterans Association has to credential you. I don't understand. Or if ICE hires you, ICE has to verify you. I don't understand. So apparently the private company that was running this prison, this ICDC, wasn't contractually required to credential doctors. So they were running any of the checks. So again, this is like an HR process that they're going through. So they don't have a medical staff office. That is terrifying. So how many of these organizations are hiring these quote unquote doctors because they actually have a license, but they're not doing any checks? That's insane.
It's insane. And if you need a CVO, call out to AQC, honey. We will give you the best type of service to make sure we catch these bad actors for you. Because it wasn't until May of 2021 that ICE finally cut ties with the ICDC. And by September, all the detainees were removed. And by October, the contract was finally terminated. So all of this had to happen. All of this had to come out. And then finally they're moving.
Yeah, but guess what? The doctor never testified. He invoked his Fifth Amendment. No, he invoked his Fifth Amendment right when he was subpoenaed. And then in 2022, he was under federal criminal investigation, but no charges have been made to the public.
That is crazy. And what do we take from this, you all? Credentialing and oversight failures. This is what we're looking at, is when the actual system is not catching the bad actors and they're not using the measures and the checks that we're all required to do. At every level, this doctor slipped through the cracks of a system that lacked basic checks, reviews, and accountability at this point.
And who was checking? Where were the cracks? Where was the oversight?
Exactly. And the response from ICE and the government is we'll investigate. And meanwhile, the damage is already done to these poor women out there. And again, credentialing is patient safety. It is literally parallel to patient safety.
Yeah, you don't get to investigate after you allowed an entire facility to become a horror show, have maimed and mutilated and, permanently left disfigured hundreds of women.
Exactly. So, I mean, really, let's just talk about the real villains in all this, because yeah, the doctors were trash and that's true. But what enabled them? The institutions, the systems, the people who knew and said nothing about it. And this wasn't oops, we missed it. It was oops, we covered it up. That's what it looks like to me, Niley. That's a strong statement.
Yeah, let's be clear. None of these guys were operating in the shadows. They weren't hiding in alleyways with scalpels. They were right there in the hospital, in a facility, in a medical clinic, sipping coffee, getting high fives, doing quote unquote procedures.
Come on. And they all had complaints on file. They all had lawsuits. They had whispers in the hallway, don't send your patients to him. And still the machine kept moving, because you know what makes the machine stop is lawsuits, publicity, exposure. And they didn't want any of that.
Right, so instead of doing the right thing, they do the silent thing. They let them resign quietly. They just say, oh, go away, or, oh, we'll change it to the criminal system, or we're not going to do this criminal system. We're going to do it with the board. Oh, not with the board. So they offer a settlement. They shred a few files. They transfer to the new hospital. Like, he's a bad group project partner or something.
Yep. And it's not our problem anymore, right? So once they move to the new hospital, it's not our problem. We don't know what happened. Let's just move on. Yeah, and just push the problem forward like a hot potato with a stethoscope. And the next hospital, they don't dig, they don't check, they just go, oh, he's board certified, cool. Oh, he came from this hospital, cool.
The board certification doesn't mean they're ethical, doesn't mean they have malpractice coverage, because Lord, I've seen several. It doesn't mean that they have a clean record. It doesn't mean that they're great surgeons. I'm sorry. It just means that they passed the test. And it doesn't mean that they aren't going to harm patients. It just means that they filled out the paperwork, they logged what they did do, and they paid the fees.
Say it again for the people in the back, Nylene, because they didn't hear you, boo.
Yes, the credentials are not the character. You can have a wall full of diplomas and a back room full of bodies if no one is looking.
And don't even get me started on the hospital and the healthcare systems who keep it quiet to protect their brand. Oh, well, we can't get this out. It might hurt our reputation. You know what else hurts your reputation? Dead patients, abused women, broken trust. But go off, I guess, right? I mean, whatever, because that's what they don't understand is I think patients and the community would be so much more forgiven if somebody said, hey, we've spotted something. Hey, we fixed it. Hey, these are the steps that we're going to take not to make sure that we don't have this happen again. And then that is where trust and transparency come in, right?
Well, and that's the idea behind peer review. Like, peer review is not supposed to be punitive. It's supposed to be a safe space where doctors can talk to each other and say, hey, look, I'm going to call you out. This really wasn't right. You did this or you didn't do this. This could be done better. Like, that is the ideals, but it's not reality. It's giving, we care more about liability than lives view from the healthcare institutions, and the real ones paying the price are the patients. Providers who speak up, they get shot down. So our good doctors are being penalized or are getting bad reps for this. And then the MSPs that are trying to do their job are getting burnt out, are getting frustrated, are going to think that their words don't matter, their ideas don't matter, their brain doesn't matter because they're there with no support. And they're just doing whatever administration says without the care of the support of administration.
Yeah, really the support.
Right.
Yeah. And if you're listening and you ever tried to report something and ignored, you are not crazy. You are not dramatic. You are not the problem. You are up against a system built to protect itself. And so, this is when you look back at the stories we've talked about today, it's not the people that are the whistleblowers that are the problem. It's the system that is trying to protect itself at all costs and not provide transparency to the community.
But guess what, Shannon? You know what?
What?
That's why we made this show.
Credentialing Chronicles. I love it.
To pull back the curtain, blow the whistle, and remind folks we can't fix what we won't face.
Exactly. Our mic stays hot thanks to listeners like you. Become a monthly supporter and help us keep shaking tables up. So what now? Because we're not just here to spill the tea. We're here to hand out umbrellas, baby. Here's how to protect yourself, your practice, or your hospital. Nylene, do you want to talk about providers first, my love?
Yes, if you see something shady, document it, report it, protect your license. If you don't feel comfortable about something, don't do it. Protect yourself, protect your patients, and be the one who refuses to stay silent. I'm sorry. Kudos to all those doctors on TikTok. I follow all y'all. I love all y'all. I love all the jokes. I love fighting the insurance companies. Like, I am #1 supporter. We have amazing doctors who work so hard out there that it irritates me that we have such bad actors to talk about. So don't stay silent. Protect your careers, protect your integrity, and protect your other good doctors, and try to get these bad actors out as well.
The profession, protect the profession. And for medical staff professionals, as always, I'm going to shout y'all out. I love medical staff professionals. I've been a medical staff professional over 25 years. Verify everything as you do, as y'all do, as we do. Even the things that look good, the voluntary resignations. Why did you move? How did you move? Where did you move? Who was your moving company with? Ask everything, honey. Don't assume if they passed another hospital's credentialing, like you all already know, that they're clean. When nobody can use somebody else's credentialing. That's what keeps us all working in a systematic flow, is that we do not share information. We verify our own information. And if you're being pressured to ignore red flags, document it. Protect yourself. You are the firewall. And if you have an issue and nobody is listening to you, could always drop us a line and give, Nylene has 1,000 different certifications. I'm sure she could give y'all some advice.
Listen, for patients, if you need to look up your doctor, MSPs, if you need to look up somebody, you want to look up all 50 states and you don't want to pay the FSMB, just come hit me up. I got a couple of secrets I could show you how we can go ahead and protect ourselves. Look up doctors. Every state has a medical board license lookup. We have provided them. If you want a special secret email, just email Credentialing Chronicles. I promise you I will answer. Google them. Set your Google alerts. Check for lawsuits. There is a public website in Florida, for example, where you can just type in their name and it'll tell you if there's any public lawsuits, okay?
Several states have
once
that.
They're filed. Yep, once they are filed, they are public. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Trust your gut and leave.
The system might protect some doctors, but Credentialing Chronicles, we protect the truth.
Yes. So thank you for riding with us. Subscribe, share, and tell someone to check that license. Well, I was going to say follow button, but you know.
and the follow button. And the
follow button.
They're telling us, y'all, we got to push it. We got to push it. And to every medical staff professional doing this work in silence, we see you, we respect you, and you are saving lives.
All right. Until next time, guys.
Whoo, that was a lot of tea. Who knew doctors had more drama than reality TV?
And if you think that was wild, just wait till next week. We've got more stories, more scandals, and more credentialing chaos coming your way.
Hit that follow button. And don't forget, just because they have an MD doesn't mean they have a clean record.
See you next time on Credentialing Chronicles. Stay credentialed, not canceled.